Another week in paradise comes and goes as us Bears fans have very civil conversations online about a brand new topic. What are the Bears going to do at quarterback? I'm kidding with you. Today, Nick and I plan on going through options at number 9 while talking, I guess, a little bit about the quarterback. You have to these days, as well as setting the expectations for what more offseason podcasts are going to look like. It's all coming at you on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears obsessed podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of the Bears blog, alongside my wonderful co-host, Nick Whalen of Football Guys. And Nick, another week in Chicago, right? I mean,
Yep.
I know that Justin Fields just told us that people take social media too seriously, but goodness gracious, are you getting tired of the arguments? Because as much as it may not look like it from me sometimes, I am about at my breaking point talking about this topic because somebody said this. I saw it. They said Bears fans have been talking about this since October. I think that was Kevin Fishbane talking to Rich Eisen. He's right. It has been a long time of talking about the same discussion. Where are you at with all this?
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's because we haven't had the quarterback yet. I mean, we feel like, well, once you get the quarterback, the discussion goes away and it's going to pivot to, can you win a Super Bowl or will you make the playoffs, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm sick of it. But also, I mean, it's a good discussion because one, it's Lovie Smith's fault, which makes it a good discussion.
Thank you, Lovey.
It's Justin Fields' fault some, it's the coaching. So like there's so many reasons of why we're having this discussion, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it is exhausting because it's who did he unfollow on Instagram? Like, I don't care.
And
I don't care. It's, taking any sliver of any information and this means this for Ryan Poles or Kevin Warren said this. And then, I mean, it's like, y'all,
oh, don't
we still have
forget.
the combine. We still got pro days. We still got free agency. Like, there are bigger things to fry than who he follows on Instagram.
Nick, never forget that we aren't that far removed from Justin Fields is staying. Look, he's on the London game promo. How are they going to trade this guy? I mean, it has been all offseason. And here's one thing I think is hard. So Nick hasn't prepped this at all. It's not in our show sheet. So Nick, just prepare yourself. I'm going to do some rapid fire questions. Okay, so pretend you're a Packers fan. Now, I'm going to give you a couple seconds to process that because I need you to
I live in Wisconsin. This is easier for me.
Okay, perfect. All right, so outside looking in, right? Is Jordan Love a top 10 quarterback?
For them, yes.
Okay, well, overall, I'm including, so you can include your personal perspective as a Bears fan.
I'll say he's outside of it. I want a guy to prove it for 2 years. He's probably like 12-ish.
I agree with you. Okay, so if Jordan Love, or if you had the opportunity to draft Drake May over Jordan Love as a Green Bay Packer, would you?
Right now, no.
Probably not, because Jordan Love showed you enough to stick with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Jordan Love's overrated?
I do.
Knowing that, you'd still stick with him because when a quarterback cracks the top 12, he forces your hand, right?
Yep.
I don't think that I have made this clear enough, so I want to make it clear on my podcast here with you that if Justin Fields had broken that top 12, I would be all over trading down. I can't help but think, Nick, that sometimes we do such a good job of creating these divisions between the Caleb side and the Justin side that we forget that this is an almost unfortunately lucky coincidence of circumstances where if the Bears were drafting at 5 and 9, we talked about this last time, I think. We would look into our options. We would seriously think about it, but we would probably settle on, I really don't think you can do better with Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy than you're going to do with Justin Fields. Just take the players and trade down. Yep. Or if Justin Fields you did have number 1, but Justin Fields had been that Geno Smith, Jordan Love level player, you stick with him anyways. You say, we can win with this. We can even win because of this. And we can roll here. But instead, you're left with one option that is effectively 2 in the bush in Caleb Williams, and another option that is also 2 in the bush, which is Justin Fields' projection. And the moment you're doing projections on both guys, the discussion, I think, starts to lean towards the I don't know. I don't want to get into all that because it's less about it being proven. It's more, at least to me, Nick, I think it's worth mentioning that nobody hates Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is one of the coolest people alive, right?
Mhm.
And God knows I, like you, desperately wanted the guy to be the franchise guy. Posted
Yep.
my reaction to him getting drafted just the other day. Man, I was over the moon like a 7-year-old unwrapping a Christmas present. I thought, to use the exact words that went through my mind, man, I was like, God is a Bears fan today. Like, it felt
Mhm.
like one of those seminal moments where the cloud opened and said, the Bears finally have their quarterback. And
Yep.
I'm bummed that it didn't
I
work out.
I
Yeah.
I had the same feeling when they traded for Jay Cutler too, though. Did you have that same feeling then?
I didn't. So I was just young enough as a Bears fan that I didn't know that that had happened. So I get my
Okay.
dad telling me the Bears traded for this guy. And then I watch him and I was a fan for life. Like,
Yeah.
especially as a young kid. Do you know how many arguments in the city of Dallas that I had about Jay Cutler being better than Tony Romo? A lot. And
I mean, so but you're right. Like in the end, like this is um I'm a Bears fan, y'all.
Mhm.
Like I've longly said I will roll with whatever Ryan Poles wants here. And actually, I think that ties into kind of what I have here because
Mhm.
I I posed this question on Twitter actually this week. I was like, what would it take you to trade away from the 101? And there's some people they're like, nothing. Like, and to me, that's you're looking at it wrong because in the end, there has to be some package where even if you let's say you don't believe in Justin Fields, okay? I don't care if you want to roll with Tyson Bagent,
Right.
however, whatever.
You
There has to be a scenario in your head where like, you know what? We could get so many weapons, such an offensive line, such a defense. We can Brock Purdy a team, whatever, that it would make it worth it to trade away from the 101. But some people don't think that way. But to me, I think it is because in terms of a financial sense, in terms of a talent sense, like Justin Herbert is a franchise quarterback, but he can't carry the team,
who
right?
can?
Because you need the team too. So
Mhm.
to me, there's two parts to this. So I think in this exercise, Robert, you know, I mean, I think that we can see both sides of this,
I hope
but there
so.
has to be a package where Robert or you listening would be okay trading away the 101. So I'm going to start with this. Okay.
I can
And
already
this is
give you one
assuming
if you'd like me to.
go
Do you want
what?
one?
Well, I
Or
have
do
a
you want to
bunch
hit
of
me
them.
with the scenarios?
Yeah, I have a bunch of them. So we're going to assume here, Robert, that and everyone listening, that Caleb is your top quarterback. There
I
are some people that don't have Caleb as the top one, but we're going to assume it's Caleb. Okay.
I can even give you my little ranking sheet right now if
Sure,
you'd
sure,
like.
sure. If you want to, yeah,
So I think Caleb Williams is a unique player, and the uniqueness intrigues me. I'm going to lead with that unique word every single time I get the chance because I don't want to pretend, Nick, that I think that there's any such thing as a surefire prospect. We don't know. Caleb's uncanny ability to scramble, his outrageous release, his ability to throw from nearly or from pretty much no platform at all. Which, for those of you who don't know what a platform is, that basically means that whether Caleb Williams sets his feet or not, he can drive the ball to out on the outside of the numbers and basically to anywhere within the first 30 yards of the field, which covers, what would you say, Nick, conservatively about 95% of throws in
yep,
football, like
yep.
within 30 yards or so. But so Caleb has a set of skills. I don't want to talk about Mahomes. You can quote, or you could cite my comparison to Rodgers, but it's more to say Caleb is a unique. I don't want to call it a new thing. It's more like it's a rare thing to find. They don't
Mhm.
make the Caleb Williams type quarterbacks in a lab, even if that means that he may go up in flames at the end of the day. He's my number one because I see a gap between him and Nick, number two, Drake May, which is the prototype. Like, this is the guy that you could look back, Nick, and say he should have been the number one quarterback in this class, outside of the fact that an alien and a very unique player sits in front of him. He is your 6'3 king, your 230 king, your 4'5 king. He's your big,
Mhm.
strong, like guy that throws the ball at all levels of the field well. He is outrageously well coached. And I actually want to credit the player here when I say that, because not everybody takes to coaching as well as it's very obvious that Drake May does. Drake May
Mhm.
goes through the game script. Drake May operates with precision. Drake May sees the field, even if he sticks within the limited framework of what I think his coach asks him to do. But when you watch or when you look at physical toolkit plus play on the field, I think Drake May is clearly number two. Number three is where things get weird, Nick, because I've seen a lot of love for Jaden Daniels. And I'm not about to tell you I think Jaden Daniels is the worst or something like that. What I will say is I would be wary of any quarterback that's played that many snaps, four starters or four starting seasons worth of snaps at a very different level than he played his fifth season that he only got because of the COVID year.
Yep.
So if Jaden Daniels doesn't get the COVID year, we don't see this Jaden Daniels. So does that mean that you're getting Lamar Jackson 2.0, but drastically more reckless? Or are you getting a
Uh-huh.
player that figured out how to dominate college with Nick, not one, two first round receivers that are both declaring this season,
I
one
I
of
I would
which
say top 15 NFL draft pick
yeah,
receivers.
and one of them one of them that would be the first receiver taken, if not for the fact that a space alien is in his class, right?
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
Malik Neighbors.
Right.
So Jaden Daniels, I think I'm a little lower on than a lot of people that are getting very excited. But Nick, I like JJ McCarthy too. In a
Mhm.
world where the Bears could trade back to nine, or well, I guess they're at nine, so they could trade back to eight or something like that. McCarthy could be an intriguing compete with Justin guy, where the aim would be that he's going to push Justin, but Justin's going to play for a year in an attempt to prove himself. And if he
Yep.
doesn't, then you took the raw McCarthy and you tried to build him into an NFL quarterback. But that's my spiel, right?
Mhm.
Where as we talk through who these quarterbacks are, I see Caleb, small gap, Drake, bigger gap, probably Jaden Daniels if you want the player that you got to start today, and JJ McCarthy if you're looking a little longer term. And then another gap, and we could get into the rest, but I'm not Joel Klatt. I don't need to give you my fifth
No,
quarterback because I don't think
no.
it matters.
No, I think we're fairly close there. I think I'm a little higher on May than you are. I think he throws
May's
guys
good.
open. He is good. I mean, I think I know off air talks. I think I'm a little higher on May than you. I think he throws more guys open.
Yes.
And he's still very creative. He's just not like you said, alien like. Caleb's just like again, some guys won't get this Gumby like he's so
Right.
flexible and with his movements and his freestyle. If you want to think of like think of the and one mixtape, like
Yes.
he's like a playmaker,
He's
like
he's like that
different level.
guy. What's it? The professor on
The
YouTube,
professor, man.
where
Yeah.
you watch him and you go, "How did you do that?" And
Yes.
Caleb
Yes.
does that, whereas May is more like watching a classic power forward. If we're sticking to basketball, where he dominates, you know why he dominates because
Yeah.
he's bigger than you, and
Yep.
he like May to me, Nick. If I was gonna put numbers on this, this is like talking about a 96 and a 94 and making it out like that 2 points
Sure.
is
Hmm.
a huge gap. It's not. May is extremely classically good. When I say he would be, I think, the clear cut number one overall pick, if not for Caleb Williams, I mean that
Oh
really
yeah.
well. Like
Yeah.
May, but it is a weird draft, Nick, because the existence of two top choices continues to make everybody think, well, if there's two, then there really must be none. But we're looking at two quarterbacks that both would sit with Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow at that table level of prospect where
Yep.
you go, these guys are legit.
Hmm.
And we're picking our favorite flavor of those two.
Oh
Maybe.
yeah. So speaking of that, in this first trade scenario,
Mm-hmm.
you trade down from 101 to 102 with Washington. Washington has to have Caleb Williams. He's from DC. It's the new ownership, new coaches, new regime, and they want Caleb bad. And we've heard some of
Yep.
those rumblings. Okay.
Yep.
In this trade, you get the second overall pick. You get the 36th overall pick, which I think is not Chicago's. I think that's their own. But either way, you get the Montez Sweat-ish pick back. You get a 2025 first and a 2025 second. And then you could take Drake May. What do you think about that offer?
So earlier in this offseason, not this offseason, it was the earlier in the season. It's been our first series or season of the podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, make sure that you rate it and like it. We appreciate your support. We're at like 75 reviews on Spotify and like 50 on Apple. Let's get those numbers up. We love you guys. Thank you for listening. But Nick, earlier you pitched me, what was it, a future first plus Jeffrey Simmons from Tennessee for them to come up to number one. And I turned it down because I was trying to be all on principle or whatever. You have to take this. If Washington really wants to basically, I'm trying to think of like a G-rated way to say what you know I'm saying, right? If Washington wants to sell you their entire future, you have to let them. Like, at this, Drake May is just not a far enough fall off of Caleb Williams to not take the extra second, but mostly that extra first and the extra second. That's insane. And then if Caleb goes on to become a Hall of Famer and a one-of-one guy, well, shoot. And hopefully you at least got a Kirk Cousins player to pat yourself on the back on. But the odds are, and the reason you're drafting Caleb Williams, this needs to be said more, Nick, you're drafting Caleb Williams so that he can probably be Kyler Murray and maybe be a little bit better than that. Because Kyler Murray lands you a quarterback that's in the top 10, if on the bottom end of the top 10, and that's quite the improvement for Chicago. Drake May can hit that same mark. That would be Jared Goff. That would be Kirk Cousins. That would be, everybody wants to say Josh Allen, but like a slightly more mobile Justin Herbert that maybe doesn't immediately come to the table with the passing acumen that Justin Herbert has obviously had. This is a good player. And if you really got me, not just 3 more picks, 3 really high picks, I mean, I think you have to take it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's where I'm at too, because I like Drake May that much. And because I think it takes more than a quarterback to carry a team, which is what I think people think of. I think this is for sure, yes. Where it gets a little dicey for me would be if it's like if it's only 102 and 2 seconds. I don't think that would be enough for me.
If you offered me 102, 36, and the 2025 one, I am very seriously thinking about it. And I would spend days deliberating. Like in the world of right on the line, like I'm not coming off number 1. Robert Schmitz would absolutely just like I would lose sleep over, man, they're offering me that. And all I got to do is go
That's
back
the
one
sweet spot, I
spot.
think. That's the sweet. Well, because Adam Schefter, right? You know, again, they're guessing, but when Schefter and Rappaport talk, it's a little different than when it's anyone else. He said the asking price starts from moving from 101 to 102 with 2 first-round picks. And so that's why people, when they're like, well, look on the draft trade chart, it should be a third and, you know, whatever. It's not, because it's 2 firsts. So that's why if it's more than 2 firsts, I think that's where the sweet spot is. I made it 2 seconds just to see if I could get you off of Caleb, and that sounds true. Okay. So let's keep going with this. Okay.
Let's keep going.
Let's lessen this. Okay. Let's make it your sweet offer where it's 102, 36 this year, and a 2025 first. Okay. Let's say you deliberated for a couple of days,
and then I took
it. And you decided yes. Now you're at 102. Atlanta comes knocking. They're like, hey, we can't go with Desmond Ridder again. Okay. So you already have those picks.
And then they offer me what? Do you mind if I put some creative liberties on the scenario?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So they offer me 108, 43, the 2025 first, the 2025 or the 2026 first. So 3 firsts and a future second. And then I look at them and I say, I don't need the second, but I mean, what? I mean, I guess you'd have to give me Drake London. I really want this pick. And they go, done. And I go, shoot.
Wow. So you're getting the better than DJ Moore offer here then.
Well, because at this point, Atlanta knows that what you're having to give up, right? You could argue that the negotiating leverage that Washington has, as weird as this sounds, the negotiating leverage that Washington has to keep this deal at a first and a second is that you're still getting Drake May. Everybody's aware that you're moving up for a player with all kinds of hype behind him. And as much as you think that's silly, let's not forget, Bears fan, Tim Tebow and Johnny Manziel were first rounders. Hype gets you far,
Yep.
especially when it comes to quarterback scouting. So you're moving from the guy with all of the buzz to the guy without all the buzz, which was CJ Stroud not long ago. The buzz doesn't really matter. It just seems to impact trade capital, right? So Atlanta is pitching me. They have to buy me off of one of these top quarterbacks. You
Mhm.
have to go from these guys to the rest. And I'm sitting here thinking we could even trade the 2026 first for London if that makes you feel better. Just
Okay.
because I'm envisioning a conversation where Atlanta goes, we'll offer you all this, and you as the Bears GM get cheeky with it, and you go, I mean, come on, like you're not
Yeah.
going to give me this, right?
It's like
And
draft day.
they go, that's what you need, done, and you go. Because if you told me that somehow the Bears could land at 8 with their first pick, and they did have DJ Moore and Drake London, because that's an unbelievable pair for
Right.
DJ Moore. I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know that Justin Fields would like live up to those receivers, but this is the point where you'd build a team so good, man, you'd sign a Gardner Minshew. You'd throw money at some solution. You'd bring in legitimate competition because it wouldn't be time to fart around anymore. Like,
Right.
forgive my language there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you as a coach,
Well,
Nick, would say, Justin, we love you, but you know the team that you're looking at. Like, we have to bring in as
yep.
much competition as possible because we cannot not make the playoffs with this group.
Mhm. Well, essentially what this offer is, if it's the first and it's not Drake London, then it's the DJ Moore offer with DJ Moore being a first is what it is.
Right.
Or if you put London in instead of the other first, then it's the same thing. It's the DJ Moore offer. That's why I had it that way.
Right.
And here's the other part to this. So if you do this trade, you still have that extra first from Washington, y'all, right? So you have so much draft capital, I think, in the future that like if it doesn't work out, you have this squad around a rookie quarterback you can get next year or the year after
Quinn
too. So that's a
Ewers.
little insulation.
Yay. I will tell you one unspoken part about this. The 2025 quarterback class is just not inspiring a lot of confidence. That's not to say that they can't be good, but remember how earlier we said, and I'm throwing out arbitrary numbers, everybody, that Caleb was like a 96 and Drake May was like a 94. I would be pretty surprised if Shadir Sanders, who I tend to think will be the quarterback one from next year, would grade out any higher than, what do you think, Nick? Like an 89? Good
Yeah.
player.
No, I'm with you.
Good player.
Him and Quinn Ewers would be the other one.
And Ewers might be like an 87 at
Right.
that point, and
Right.
mostly off tools because we're still not 100% sure
So
that guys can make any decisions.
so in this scenario though, let's say it's not Drake London. You get the 3 firsts and 2 seconds. Are you
Mhm.
moving off of Drake May, rolling with Fields, and getting this draft capital?
If so, I think that you could flip a coin, right? Me personally, I would probably stick with Drake because what Drake gives me as a GM, who's now going into his 3rd year, is 2 years of relative safety at which at any point, if we experience just making the 7 seed, then my owner gets off my back. Right. And I probably get an extension to ride out this rookie. Whereas if I trade down, I could show him all of the draft capital I assembled for him, and he could very easily say back to me, right, Sashi Brown, you did
Yeah, I
do
know.
that, didn't you?
I know.
He's going to do all the drafting for us because,
All right, all right, all right. Hold on. Let's change this up a little bit, okay?
sure.
There's some, there's some rumblings, and I know it's in division, okay? The same trade happens with Washington, but Minnesota gives you a call. They offer you 11. They offer you a future first, whether it's 25 or 26, doesn't matter. And Justin Jefferson.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, Justin Jefferson and DJ Moore would be some like Madden stuff. That would be unbelievable. But I got to ask you a weird question, Nick. Again, we're talking about a story that's not getting talked about a lot, and I'm going to put the tinfoil hat on. Why haven't they gotten a contract done yet?
I've heard that they don't like to give multiple future years of guarantees in. Like it's only 1 year.
Sure.
They did it more with more than one for Hawkinson, but not a ton. That's just something they traditionally don't do. And I assume Justin Jefferson wants like 3 years fully
I bet
guaranteed
he
or
does.
more.
Here's my take, conspiracy theory and all, right? This deal should be easy. You reset the wide receiver market. It's that easy. Like
Yep.
Justin Jefferson, you are now going to reset the wide receiver market. Here you go. Unless, in true receiver fashion, maybe there's a chance Justin Jefferson doesn't want to be paid like a wide receiver. Maybe he wants to be paid like one of the most valuable players, regardless of
Uh-huh.
position, in ball right now.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Nick. You call up Justin Jefferson's agent before you make this trade, because you're not going to make this trade without an extension for Justin Jefferson, right? That would just
Right.
be ridiculous.
Right.
And he tells you, "Oh, we're looking for top 3 position player money in the NFL. That's the asking price." Does that change your mind about a trade offer like this? Or do you tighten the belt and say, well, I guess we're saving in other positions and make the
No,
deal anyways?
100% it changes it because I'm not going to pay a receiver $50 million
I
a
mean,
year.
not so you're not on the quarterback market, but we'd be looking at like $34-35 million a year for Justin Jefferson.
I would pay him $34-35 million a year.
I mean, he's valuable as heck,
He's
right?
he's he's on pace to be the best wide receiver ever in NFL history.
And
Like
that's with good
those
old
numbers,
Kirk throwing him the ball. Like the hope would be that maybe, just maybe, you can do more than with Kirk Cousins.
right?
It's if for no other reason right now, then I would, if I got that offer from Minnesota, I might immediately call I would probably immediately call the Broncos, and I'd immediately call the Falcons, and I'd immediately call the Raiders, and I'd be like, guys, give me something. Like I know hey, you've got a scenario for the Raiders on here. So let's say that Minnesota gives me that offer, and I go, I really don't want to do an in-division trade. The moment that Drake May puts up 330 yards on us, we're fired. So
Yep.
I call the Raiders, and what do they say they're willing to offer me?
Right. Yeah. So that's a part of this debate in the debate too, is it's in division. So the Raiders offer is almost exactly what Minnesota's is, where it's the 13th overall pick. It's a 2025 first. It's Max Crosby. Now, again, the difference is Max Crosby has already signed his long-term extension deal, so you save a little money there.
So it's the DJ Moore trade.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, can I just say, Nick, Max Crosby and Montez Sweat on the same defensive line
Yeah.
would be hard to contain myself as we talked through. Like, we're starting to look at such a glut of first rounders as we talk through these options that you would have to sit out free agencies because you couldn't afford to not sign your draft class if you ended up signing too many guys,
Yep.
which would just be a funny problem to have. But I tend to think, this is my opinion, that if you were going to stick with Justin Fields, maybe bring in a little bit of competition. This Raiders deal, especially if you can get the Raiders to throw you like a third as a sweetener or something like that, because yes, you got Max Crosby. Yes, you got the 2025 one, but Max Crosby isn't worth Justin Jefferson, would be the argument that I think I could successfully make to them. And
Yeah.
so I'd say, and you're coming from 2 spots below. Like,
Right.
you got to give me a little bit of something. But at that point, if you're already moving off of 2, if somehow during the scouting process, we realized that Drake May, I don't know, has a terrible relationship with his mother and George McCaskey's just not going to let that fly. Scouting's weird, right? If we decided that we were trading, I would definitely think about an offer like that. But I don't know, just because for me, Nick, I think that it's the right time to reset at quarterback. It would take a historic offer to get
Right.
me to move off of 2.
So
Off of 1, I'm talking. Off
Okay.
of 2, oh, you really got to
So-
sell me.
So which of those offers do you like the best? If you had if you were like, hey, I'm gonna pick one, Atlanta, Minnesota, or Raiders with those offers, which one would you pick?
Atlanta gave me, I think, the most here because they offered me 3 first-round picks, and I think that there's all kinds of value there. The veteran player is great, but the moment that you pay Justin Jefferson $34 million, if you want to get surplus value out of him, you have to I mean, he has to live up to more than $34
Yeah.
million.
Yeah.
And especially because, Nick, another piece to this Chicago conversation, is it going to be so ridiculous when at the end of next season, DJ Moore comes to Ryan Poles and says, give me my money? I mean, it won't be ridiculous at all, right? So
Mhm.
part of me looks at the receiver room and thinks the Bears need a young receiver just as much as they need a receiver. And the
Yeah.
moment that you got the moment that you bring in a Justin Jefferson, your receiver room gets really expensive. And yes, you have what you hope would be a rookie quarterback, but I mean that's the other part of this, right? If you got Justin Jefferson, can you even afford Justin Fields' deal? You could probably make it work. But you'd have
Yeah.
to do some pretty hefty restructuring to fit it all together if you're sticking with Fields. And if you did all this to not stick with Fields, you're just going to have to be able to sell a very unorthodox plan at that point to your owner.
Well, I mean, the Bears are going to be one of those teams that's kicking it down the road, kicking the can of salaries and restructures and signing bonuses and void years, all that kind of stuff.
The Super
Um,
Steelers, right? Where you had DJ
well,
Moore and Justin Jefferson, and you're hoping
mhm,
for better than Mason Rudolph, which, God, Justin Fields is better than Mason Rudolph. I am
yes,
not trying to imply that. So
yeah.
the Super
Um,
Steelers in all fashions.
I have one other one that I threw on Twitter. I'm just curious if you think it would be a fair deal
Mm-hmm.
or you would entertain it. You give up, okay, you get to the ninth overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
All three receivers are gone. Brock Bowers is gone.
Okay.
Do you trade the ninth pick to the 49ers for Brandon Ayuk and their 31st overall pick, a
I mean,
late first?
first of all, probably. But at the same time, I want to talk about this. You still run into that same cap issue the moment
Right.
you get Ayuk,
That's why. Yep. Yep.
which I think Ayuk is a phenomenal player. The other piece to this that I know I would worry about personally, Nick, I think Brandon Ayuk is awesome. If Brandon Ayuk doesn't want to stay in San Francisco, where he just got an All Pro, where he could easily get paid, where he just caught, 1,300 yards,
Mhm.
what more is this guy going to ask for? Right? I
Okay.
can't help but think, and I'm just talking out loud, you set me straight if you disagree,
Yeah.
that we kind of saw this with Devontae Adams too, where not every receiver that wants to leave their successful former location does better at the next place.
Mhm.
And some of that, not all, but like Devontae Adams leaves and immediately he has to go to court over an incident where he pushes a cameraman for nearly no reason out of
Well,
frustration.
well,
Like,
it's not just receivers, Robert. That's the whole thing of like trading for guys or free agents. I mean, Russell Wilson did
mhm.
not do it in Denver. Deshaun Watson has not paid off in Cleveland yet. Like, and those are guys in their prime. Sure, it
call
worked for some, but it doesn't work all the time.
call me nuts, but there's this beautiful dynamic that I think the Bears are prepared to set up, whether it's Roman Dunze that they're able to draft, or maybe they have to trade back. Maybe they end up with Adonai Mitchell. Maybe they end up with Keon Coleman. Maybe they end up with Brian Thomas. But you know who those guys aren't going to question is DJ Moore.
No.
Like, they get to come into an offense where eventually they will have their day. They might even be number one wide receivers. I don't think it's out of the question that a guy like Keon Coleman, I really mean this, man, could become somewhere between T. Higgins and A.J. Brown, especially at the high end of his comp, right? But you don't know that, and you don't have to because DJ Moore's on the roster. You just
Yeah.
have to be George Pickens, or as a rookie, where you go out, you rock out with 700, 750, 800 yards. Like, that's a very healthy season.
Mhm.
And then you step into the limelight in year 2, year 3, as DJ Moore turns 28, 29. It's the perfect time to
It
get
is.
younger at
It is.
receiver.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson, all kinds of these options would flat out rule, especially in 2024. But they would create slightly more foundation problems as you stretched on into the future. That if you nail this draft pick now, ooh, man, the road opens up. Like, here's a question. So, Roma Dunze and Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison are gone. You're sitting at 9. You can take Bowers, or the Steelers are calling. They'll give you this year's 2 and a future 1 to come up to 9 to take JJ McCarthy.
And
Is
you still get
Bowers,
20?
and you still get 20. Is
Oh, yeah,
Bowers
easy.
that good?
I'm not even thinking about it. Yes, I'm
I'm
accepting
not
the
thinking
deal.
about it either. And if the Bears could ride that quarterback tax, because Bears fan, most teams don't want to trade up any further than they have to. If
Yep.
they want to trade up to the last team that'll take them. And the Jets sit right behind the Bears, and I don't think the Jets want a quarterback, but just behind the Jets is the Vikings, who probably want a quarterback. Behind them are the Broncos, who, if they got the opportunity, would probably want a quarterback. Behind them is the Raiders, who have been frankly kind of obvious that they want a quarterback. I
Mhm.
personally think, Nick, I don't know where you sit on this, the Jets have to stick where they are and take a lineman. They are so bought into Rodgers
Oh, it's
that if they
bad.
drop back too far and end up with an Anton Harrison level player that might be good, but his first year won't be, then the time is starting to tick, right? And
Yep.
somebody like Fashanu, if he falls to number 10, or JC Latham would make a lot more sense than trading out to Pittsburgh. So that
Even the Oregon State kid, is that Fuaga?
the Fuaga, yeah, exactly. Like you
Yeah,
might
me
feel
too.
like you need to take him.
Yep.
So then that leaves the Bears, not the Falcons at 8. You don't have to trade with them. You could trade with the Bears at number 9, and
Mhm.
that could be basically your Justin Fields move, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like what if you even just got the future first? Pittsburgh will give you not the second, but they'll give you a future first to go back to 20. And
Yes.
then
Yep.
I'm thinking about it too. And in the world of trade downs, part of me thinks that if the Bears do take a quarterback, that one's on the table. We'll see what happens. Maybe there won't be a market for it. But I really believe, Nick, I believe that there's going to be team on team on team on team that's going to look at JJ McCarthy's film and go, maybe not this year, but the year after that, I like this kid.
Yep.
Another option, Nick, is there any team in the NFL that values draft picks less than the Rams?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna go there. Yes.
Can you invi
well, I mean, the theme, bleep those picks.
bleep those picks? Exactly, right? Can you envision a better succession plan for Stafford than somebody just like JJ McCarthy that needs to sit a year anyways?
Mhm.
And then Sean McVay instills all his little McVayisms into this kid because he can throw seeds over the middle, which is what McVay wants to do anyways, right? Oh
Mhm.
no, he's weak outside the numbers. They'll figure it out.
Well
Like,
well, you know what's interesting is I think that you look in the top 10, I guess top 8 because Chicago would take one at 1 likely. Um, Besides the Chargers and the Cardinals, what's stopping Tennessee from taking a quarterback? What's stopping the Giants?
oh,
Atlanta?
nothing stopping the Giants. I was actually surprised you didn't put the
Like,
Giants in the scenarios. I think
I
they're
think
going to
I think
consider number one.
yeah, I think all those teams could go quarterback, which I think you add in the Rams, you add in some of these other teams that you were just talking about. I think they're in the running for Fields, just trading for Fields. Like if that's the way Chicago goes, because I know people are like, well, there's a limited market for him. Do you see how many teams don't have quarterbacks, y'all? Like Justin Fields is not that bad unless you talk to some of their fan bases. They think Justin Fields can be had for a fourth round pick. But they're like the Jets, is quarterback figured out for them? Is Rodgers going to come back? If he does, how long? Right? Uh, Minnesota, we just talked about them. I know Cousins has to sign somewhere. Like you can go down the list. There are a lot of teams that don't have quarterback figured out. It's like I think there's going to be. You're talking about for McCarthy, right? Or Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. Whatever.
Right.
We also could talk about this for Justin Fields.
I think you
So
should.
hold on before we go into that one though, we got to go to the other part of this pod I wanted to get to today
Oh
because
man, at the 38-minute mark, the new long mark, and we're
I
going all the way at it. Are you sure
I
we have
know.
the time to fit this in?
Oh, we do because I have to. We already touched on it some. Okay, so listen, y'all. Franchise tag season is coming around soon, and the Bears have one player that I think would be franchise tag worthy. It's Jaylon Johnson, and I see all the time people are posting stats from Jaylon Johnson this year. Pay the man. He made a play in the Pro Bowl, and he did the money sign. We get it, we get it. But Jaylon Johnson is upping his price. It was at first it was going to be reasonable. Now he wants to be the top guy. And I understand. He had a good year. He had a good year. We've talked about on this pod before our concerns with him, but there was one big one I dove into, and this was the one that I had mentioned about. Brett Coleman talked about once corners reach age 26, the majority of them are all pro at 26 or younger. It's 81%, I think. And then it's 60 some percent are Pro Bowl are 26 and younger. Jaylon Johnson is 24.8 years old. Okay, going to turn 25 soon. So what I looked at is, do corners fall off? And I'm talking like the good ones. Okay. So I just pulled again, we always reference PFF on here. So PFF, where they ranked as corner in their career arc. So I'll go through this quickly. Marshawn Lattimore, he's 27.7 years old. So again, Marshawn Lattimore, pretty good corner. His rankings have been 7th, 18th. Again, it starts rookie year, y'all. So rookie year 7th. That's a good start. 18th, 53rd, 70th, 10th, 56th, 49th. That is a drop off. Jalen Ramsey, 29 right now. Obviously, we know Jalen Ramsey. 23rd, 1st, 32nd, 26th, 9th, 1st, 3rd, 54th this past year. I know he had an injury, but is that the start of him falling off? He's kind of
Right.
more of the outlier here.
Yeah,
Darrell Revis, I don't
he's your
have rank.
alien.
Yeah. Darrell Revis, I don't have rankings for him, but I have PFF grades. And again, maybe you could argue the GOAT corner, him and Dion, right? And in his top first 6 seasons, he had 4 years, 90 plus PFF rating. And his last 5 seasons after that, it went 84.7, 83.5, 65.8, 63.8, 56.6. That's one of the best corners of all time. Steep drop off. Denzel Ward got paid. He's only 26.8 years old. His rankings have been 14th, 36th, 23rd, 11th, 88th, 41st. That's a drop off. Jair was 25th this past season. He had a bit of a drop off. He's only 27. AJ Terrell, another good corner, 25. 52nd, 2nd, 61st, 23rd. Darius Slay, another good corner, 102nd, 26th, 10th, 11th, 3rd, or 16th, 24th. Okay, pretty good. 86th, 56th, 4th. That's a bump. 21st, 56th. 2 good seasons out of his last 5. Marlon Humphrey, great Ravens defense, y'all. 27.6 years old. He's been 41st, 15th, 39th, 12th, 41st, 14th, 60th. 2 out of his last 3 years have not been great. Patrick Peterson, one of the best, too. Another one. 34. He's hung on. And I don't have to go through it all. I think you guys might be sick by my numbers at this point, but only one of his last, let's see here, 3, 4, 5. One of his last 5 seasons has he topped the 40s, the 40th spot. Jaylon Johnson, first year, 84th. Second year, 50th. Third year, 67th. This year, first. That is not consistency. We've talked about his injuries. We see that corners do drop off, and that's not like a one. I just mentioned what, 8 to 10 corners, Robert, and
Oh
these
yeah.
are the best guys. I didn't like cherry pick. These are
Right.
the best guys in the NFL. And Jaylon Johnson only has one good season, I think. He has, one, obviously one elite season. The other ones, you could say above average, maybe a couple of them, but. And you want to pay him top corner money when he's going to turn 25 soon? Because you know what the end of that contract is going to look like. So here's my question to you, Robert. I'm a
Give me.
tag fan. You're a tag fan.
Mm-hmm.
What if someone comes to you with a trade offer? What would you be willing to trade away Jaylon Johnson for? Like the tag and trade scenario.
Me personally, not much. Obviously, you could talk me into it if you offer me a first and a second. Like, yeah, okay, we've got ourselves a conversation. But if you
Mhm.
offered me just a straight up first, as much as I know some people are going to think that this sounds ridiculous, I don't think that the Bears defense needs to lose both of its DB leaders in one offseason. And I do think that thing matters. Like, I think turning the entire DB room from Eddie Jackson and Jaylon Johnson over to Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, and Tyreek Stevenson, plus now you have to backfill another corner, whether that's a free agent or a rookie. is just more difficult than it sounds when instead, Nick, I can try to work out a deal that is a 4-year deal with 2 years guaranteed that gets us a lower than the cap figure this year. Next year, a sizable figure, I'm sure. But then after that, it becomes a series of team options. I'm okay with that, right? Because as much as I know that I'm right there with you, that
Mhm.
the idea that he's going to maintain a PFF ranking of top 10, to be honest with you, Nick, it's unlikely. The problem
Yep.
is that I see corner production as not dissimilar from tight end production. Look, I have this theory, right? And I don't want to get into Robert's grander weird theories in on immediately right now, but I think many defensive positions can be comped to offensive corollaries. Maybe not the ones you'd expect, though, in terms of their performance. Just like how wide receiver is a very individualistic position, so too is defensive line, right? Just like how offensive line is very similar to. Just like how offensive line is a team oriented position where, yes, your individual skill matters, but the total unit production is also sort of its own living, breathing organism. So, too, the defensive backs, right? And I would argue that let's stick with that. Offensive line is a better use case here, where to me, Nick, there's no denying that corners produce at the ability that their scheme allows them to. And by scheme, I mean defensive line plus assignment plus their execution of that assignment. It is not an easy thing for the Chiefs DBs to dominate. But when you have Chris Jones in front of you and George Karlaftis and, oh gosh, who's the guy that they got? Felix Anudike Ozuma,
Oh,
was
yeah,
it?
yeah. Yep,
Like
yep. From
he'll
K-State.
he'll come along at some point, you'd think. And then at that point, the DBs, yes, they've got a difficult job. Locking guys down for 2.5 to 4 seconds isn't easy, but it's
Mhm.
easier than it was. You mentioned Jaylon Johnson, 84th ranked corner when he was a rookie playing with the dregs of what was left of the 2020 offense. And then Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, they're all jettisoned within a couple years. And
Yep.
in something that I don't think is shocking, Jaylon Johnson doesn't post a top 50 grade on teams that have no pass rush. Then this year, you get a whole bunch of things that go his way. Man, he's a couple drops away from a truly special
Yeah.
2019 Eddie Jackson level DB season, obviously playing a different position. But to me, Nick, the fact that he's the number one corner and one of the few real veteran impact players in this young DB room has me thinking the locker room could use a leader, and I am willing to pay a premium for that. But I'm not about to pretend that this is the right answer. This is me having an
Yeah.
opinion, right?
I and that's the thing is, like, I get all of that if he was healthy. I get all that if
Oh,
he's
yeah.
done this more than once.
The Tevin
But he just
Jenkins.
and and he wants top money now. So to me, that's like
That's
25,000,000 a year?
That has to be leverage. I bet you today, Nick, if you offered him $45 million guaranteed at a 22 million AAV, he's signing before he goes to sleep.
I don't know.
I
I
think
don't
he
know.
is.
Like, there obviously, there's a line there. We have to figure that out. But to me, seeing that corners drop off, seeing that he's been injured every year,
I wouldn't
there's
offer him
no consistency
22.
here.
I should
I
make
would
that
trade him
clear.
away. I This sounds weird. I would trade him away, Robert, because then that gives you another 18,000,000. Then sure, you want to go sign the D tackle from the Ravens. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. Or you want to go get Daniil Hunter, and then the pressure is way off of all of your DBs, and it changes the dynamic. Because I would rather have the D line than I would have and pay a corner and hope that he holds on because it just rarely happens.
So I have this vision, and I need to pull up. Nick, I need you to make a point to stall for me because I just had an idea that happened spur of the moment. So talk a little bit more about corner and give me about 30 seconds.
Well, okay, so the biggest issue with corner is that it is a position where you are reacting to wide
Hmm.
receivers at all the time. And that
Hmm.
that makes it difficult because you have to be both fast, you have to be physical, and you have to be agile and have balance and be able to cut out of breaks that it's like it's one of the most difficult
It
positions.
is
Nickel, I think, is the
extremely.
hardest.
I agree.
Outside is also really hard. But like playing in that area is so difficult. That's why I think the drop off happens, Robert, because when you don't have that top athletic ability, think of running backs. They come in the league by storm. Boom, they're still great athletes.
Right.
Then you start getting that 25, 26, 27, 28-year-old running back. They have to be crafty. Receivers can still be crafty. Mike Evans is still doing it because he's
Yes.
crafty. Cooper Cup because he's crafty. They don't
Remember
have
those
the
years
same
where
speed.
Tracy Porter was crafty in a Bears uniform, and by that I
Oh,
mean he got beat all
jeez.
the time?
Oh,
Like, we
jeez.
loved you, Tracy,
Yep.
but
Yeah, you get it. So to me, that's why the fall off is there's, and that's why I think like continually reinvesting with the rookies makes sense at corner, just like it would at running back.
So I've got my point and I'm loaded, and I think you're going to like this idea. Okay, so looking at the 2025 unrestricted free agents, and yes, this is going to matter. Which of these is most likely to command the franchise tag, in your opinion? Justin Fields, Tevin Jenkins, Jack Sanborn.
Well, it depends on what the Bears do at quarterback.
Definitely depends on what the Bears do at quarterback. So, like, that notwithstanding, if Justin Fields isn't on the roster, are you right now wanting Tevin Jenkins extended?
I'm not franchise tagging him.
I think you could get to the table with Tevin, and I think that given his career arc, that he would take the money.
So you're franchise tagging Jaylon Johnson twice.
That's the idea. Is
Okay.
basically I think I could get my 2-year deal, like it or not, because the franchise tag, as I understand it, is 18 million right now for corners.
Yep.
So you get 18 million, and then the year after that, you multiply it by 20%. So you
Right.
tack on about $4.5 million. You get about 22.5 million. You average those two, Nick. We're talking about a $20 million AAV 2-year
Hey, I'm
deal.
good. I'm good with that
And this
idea,
is
man.
fine. This is totally fine.
I'm good with
And-
that idea.
and so my thought is the Bears can tag Jaylon Johnson, and in an absolute worst case scenario, you might just tag him again and then
Mhm.
keep him on the team next year. And then you can get a replacement plan in either this year or next year, because actually, yeah, the math changes a little bit. By 2025, I would hope Tyreek Stevenson is ready to handle number one corner duty. I mean, there is no such thing, right? That's the other piece to this, Nick, that goes unspoken a lot. There is no such thing as a number one corner, because most defenses play left and right corner. And if you want to go with the guy on the left, you just bump your receiver in that direction and you attack him anyways. And so
Yep.
I think at that point, you'd hope your guy is ready. Maybe you get the chance to draft a DB in this draft. I doubt it. There's just not enough slots for you to spend at a corner that you're going to sit on the shelf. But you might be able to add a rookie with one of your billion day two picks in 2025. You have 2 second rounders. One of
Yep.
those could easily be a corner to
Yep.
take over after Jaylon Johnson leaves the subsequent year. Part of me is thinking, Nick, that we might be over engineering things if we're tagging and trading him. The Bears have all the control here. All
They
of
do.
the control here.
They
Jalen
do.
doesn't have leverage, whether he wants to think he does or not, because the Bears have a very flexible franchise tag and enough
Mhm.
room next year to house him on that deal. But that's just a vision that I had right now, and I've not done enough research to absolutely confirm
No,
it.
hey, you got me on board with that. That's fine. But when you start getting 4 or 5-year deals out and guaranteed money that goes, away, because you have to also think
Oh,
in,
yeah.
you know, Fields extension or Caleb, you start thinking those years out, like this is, I mean, the window's 5 years, but paying a corner top money 4 years from now when I don't think there's going to be top 50 play. I'm not trying to offend anybody, man. This is just this is looking at all of the corners
Oh,
and
yeah.
how they are over time. I just think he's going to drop off. And it's not going to be worth it.
The theme of 2024, in my opinion, is stability. I think that the more stability that you can bring to the roster, both through offensive talent upgrades and keeping core defensive players in place, Nick, the better it will be for a rookie quarterback, because that's the direction I ultimately think the Bears are
Mhm.
going, to assimilate. And
Mhm.
then at 2025, when you're hoping Caleb's kind of got his sea legs under him a little bit, or maybe it's Drake, or maybe it's Jaden, or maybe it's JJ McCarthy, or hey, maybe it's Justin Fields, but let's assume it's a rookie quarterback for a brief moment. In year 2, you're not expecting the guy to win the MVP, but it's drastically more likely for him to play at that top 5 level than it is that he'll do it as a rookie. I think you'd agree with that, right? Where
Oh
it's
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
you're hoping for that second step. And at that point, yeah, okay, if your defense takes a slight step backwards, not a major step, Nobody's aiming for the 28th ranked defense in 2025, right? But if you took a small step backwards because you're figuring life out at corner, yeah, welcome to life in the NFL. It is just not
Mhm.
always going to be super mega rosy. But
Yep.
in 2024, as corny as it may sound to some people, yeah, if you can add that extra player or keep that extra player like Jaylon Johnson, who helps make, or who even for one more season, Nick, just keeps teams from attacking his side quite like they attack other sides, that's going to help keep scores low. That's going to give you a shot at the key six or
Well,
seven games where you'd
I
like to see Caleb come out with a win.
but I think part of that, Robert, is with 2 high safeties, corner isn't as valuable anyway. Like, you can't get attacked as much because you have help over the top. You have help with bracketing that you didn't have when the cover 1, cover 3 days.
Well, they play so much cover three. If they played more two this year, I'd be right there with you. But I'm
Mhm.
actually shocked at how much three Flu seems to want to play. And so good for him. It just means you need those corners that can do a little both. But either way, there's one more guy I want to talk about just as we wrap this show up, okay? Because I thought for sure, with all the conversation about guys like Daniil Hunter, that the Bears were getting set to spend big at edge rusher. You and I've talked about this, about a name like AJ Epinesa ultimately being the buy lower option, unless the Bears go through all the throes of restructuring this guy and changing that guy's contract. But today, Brad Biggs throws the name Lloyd Cushenberry into the pile. And Nick, if you're telling me that the Bears took a former third rounder, now a 26-year-old veteran center that just had a very good season in a slew of pretty good seasons, uh, Bears fan, you may want to strap in your seatbelt here as I say this. Good pass blocker, and you add that veteran presence that maybe your rookie quarterback needs. Nick, if the Bears actually spend big, and by big, right, we mean $7 million a year, I would be juiced if they added that kind of a guy to the Bears offensive line.
Well, yes and no. So I debated with Brad Spielberg on this because he also talked about it. I'm not as pumped about that
Ooh,
because he projected Cushionberry to have a $14 million, 14 million per year deal
per year?
per year.
Ooh, that's a big contract.
So to me, that I would shy away from that. Now, Lloyd Cushenberry, I mean, mainly started for 3 years. He had some injuries in 2022. I mean, his per his ranking and where he's been, he's had one top 10 season. He was 21st another year among centers. And other than that, it was, I mean, rookie year was not quite good. A better pass blocker than run blocker, as you said. But at that price point, give me Aaron Brewer, the guy for Tennessee. Our assistant O-line coach was an assistant O-line coach in Tennessee. Give me the chance on Connor Williams, right? With injuries issues. Evan Brown just got, or Evan Brown from Seattle. There's some familiarity. He's a low tier guy, but if you can get him cheap, or who's the guy for? Didn't one get cut from the Rams today?
Brian Allen.
Brian
He's
Allen.
been so
Like
bad for the
yeah,
last 2 years. Like I'd
right.
be I'd be so there, but there's definitely part of me, Nick. So I want you to know I am so there with what you're saying. I also want to say out loud, just even because I think the fan inside me needs to just get this message out. So I'm sorry. Thank you for putting up with me. That if the Bears overspent on offense once in a blue moon and got, let's say, $10 million worth of ROI out of a $14 million deal for Lloyd Cushenberry per year, I think I could stomach it if it's in pursuit of giving a rookie quarterback maybe the best historic situation that the number one pick has ever walked into. If that's our great sin, is overspending in pursuit of surrounding the young quarterback with a veteran present center. Because the other piece of this, Nick, that I think about is like, I want that guy that's going to be able to go, hey, hey, they're twisting. They're twisting. I've
Yeah.
seen this before. Played in this league for years. This is a twist. You know that's coming, right, kid? And Caleb doesn't because he's a rookie. He's never
Yep.
seen that before. He's been playing air raid ball against teams that run 5 coverages.
Well, he's had a bad interior O line, just like Justin Fields has too. So he's not even used to it. So I'm with you on that. Here's another part with that. A lot of these free agent centers. So Andre James is there too. He's solid. Cushionberry, Connor Williams, I mentioned already. Aaron Brewer. Those are probably the four I like the most. They're all 26. And I know people are all about JPJ in the draft. but you got a few guys that could play center in this rookie class. I
Oh
think
yeah.
center's a really deep position. I think Chicago could go veteran only. They could go rookie, hope he starts only, or you could go cheaper rookie, cheaper veteran and have double. Like, there's a lot of good options, I think, this
I
year.
mean, especially if you scooped a guy, if he fell, and it would take him falling, which is good luck based on the tape that we're seeing, right? But if somehow you manage to get E- Evan Brown, who's kind of the Lucas Patrick of Seattle, maybe he's a
Yep.
little better than Lucas Patrick, but I wouldn't plan for much just
No.
before you go make it your highlight reel.
Right.
But then you also draft a Zach Frazier who steps in
Yes.
for him
Yep.
once Frazier gets fully accustomed to the NFL. That could be a coup. But that's where guys like us can get caught theory crafting instead of remembering that you are trying to get your roster set before the draft rather than planning for the draft. You
Yep.
need that free agent receiver because what if no receiver falls to you? You need
Yes.
that free agent center because what if you don't land the center that you want? As much as
Mhm.
we like to combine free agency and the draft into one big meld, you have to walk out of free agency with a roster that is good enough. Because what happens if you don't, Nick? I've got the answer for you. You get backed into signing Yannick Ngakoue to a deal that is best left forgotten. It didn't matter because it's not our money, but somebody
Right.
spent $10 million to get no pass rush.
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean, but I mean, there are free agents. I mean, I think Marcus Davenport signed late too. I mean, there's a few, and that's kind of why
oh, sure.
they're still out there. They're hanging around. But yeah, no, I'm with you. And it's the center for Dallas, man, in your town there. He's a free agent too.
Man, there you go. Like
Yeah.
it should
I
be a fun time. Can't
I
wait.
I, I got one other thing.
Gimme.
Okay. There's this Justin Fields interview today. Something I'm irritated about. Okay. This is part of why if Justin Fields goes, I might be okay with it. And if Jaylon Johnson goes, I might be okay with it. Both, and again, Twitter and in the interview said they have LeBron over Michael Jordan. Robert, I can't have that. I can't have that. Come on. Come on. In Chicago, you can't have that. They're
Know
not the
your lane.
We
Know
know
your
who the GOAT
lane.
is. We
Know
know who
your
the GOAT is.
lane. Like,
So, just some things that irritate me, y'all, okay? We know MJ is number 1. You could debate number 2 all you want or 3, sure, go ahead. Kobe, him, Wilt, whatever, but MJ's the GOAT.
and I mean, hey, all I'm saying, look, we've said this on this pod before. I hope that if Chicago needs a bit of an ass to be a winner in the city, that maybe just maybe that choice in Caleb Williams, who is already rubbing fans the wrong way with pictures like the dress picture that he did. Like I don't know what that is. I don't think it's a straight up dress. Not that it makes a difference.
No.
It's just the nail painting, his weird ticks with sugar, and all the other stuff that Caleb does, where he's unashamedly Caleb. Man, hopefully he becomes. I mean, that would be the hopeful. Again, I'll stick to if he's Kyler Murray, if he's somebody that you and I can look at in a couple years and we can go, okay, he kind of slaps. That's good enough.
Yeah.
But man, if he hit that upper echelon of players, anyways, I don't want to ever make this about not Fields, I guess, because Fields in his interview today was so relaxed and
He
so
was.
cool and reminded me that if we were grading swagger or likability as a quarterback trait, Fields is generational. Fields has been
Yep.
so easy to cheer for. He's been so easy to root for. He's so easy to like. And he's somebody that if things don't work out in Chicago, I am legitimately disappointed. It just is not something I'm going to let blind me from the opportunity that the Bears have. Because if you switched it, Nick, if the Bears had screwed Caleb Williams and they had the opportunity to draft Justin Fields, the same decision would get made here,
Yeah.
where you would still be looking at a team that's drastically readier to move to a rookie quarterback, to house that rookie quarterback, and to utilize and weaponize everything that makes that rookie quarterback great. It's a
Mhm.
bummer it worked out this way. The loser that is the guy left holding the credit card bill here is Justin Fields, and that sucks.
Yeah, it does suck.
When you hear me talk about trading him, I know you know this. It comes from a place of it is better for Fields to get traded because the moment that a team trades for him, he gains back some leverage and some benefit of the doubt that I think he sorely needs right now.
Yep.
And he gets a fresh start. I mean,
Yep. And some confidence. Yep.
think about all the stories you've seen. You have to be a baseball fan, right?
Mm.
No? Okay.
I mean, some. I mean, I'm a Cubs fan, but I'm not big. I'm big into football,
I
Robert.
was
This is
waiting.
this
I
is
was
me,
waiting for
man.
more than. So then I'll stick to football. Recently, the quarterback renaissance is becoming more and more common than ever. Where Baker Mayfield moves to Tampa, finds his career again. Where Geno Smith moves to Seattle, finds his career again.
Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill was the exact next name coming out of my mouth. Moves to Tennessee, finds his career again. I wish, now granted, if I got to choose, Justin Fields might get to go somewhere and somehow sit for a little bit where he got to unlearn some of the things that I believe are being hammered into him. Like right now, I think that there are too many coaches that want Fields to run because he's so good at it. Whereas if he could take a step back, go a year without hits, and start processing the game a slightly different way, then maybe he'd be able to heal some of his bad habits and start weaponizing his arm like I think you and I both know he can. I don't think he's going to get that chance. But hopefully he learns it on the job, finds that career renaissance. If he goes to Pittsburgh and they make the playoffs, you're extended, baby. And everybody wins, we hope. But
One small thing that was on the podcast that so it was the St. Brown brothers,
mhm.
and St. Brown, Equinemius St. Brown said, "Man, when we need to play, all I would do, I wouldn't put in 13 personnel. I would spread you out. You guys run the routes, and if you blitz, then just obviously you're like, hey, dude's open, right? If you don't, you drop back, and then you're like, boom, and take off because like they talked about just how good he is running and that next level. It's just what we think about. It's
Mhm.
like the players think it too. It's like, yeah, hey, go deep. I can make a move on literally anybody on the field and make yards with my feet
Right?
and my legs. So it was kind of funny just to hear some of that pander. But man, we're at an hour. We were gonna do a half hour.
That's the magic of planning for a half hour is that instead of an hour show that goes 2, it's a 30-minute show that goes 1. So
Yep.
if you enjoyed it, everybody, please rate the podcast on Apple or Spotify. Comment, for all I care, your favorite color. I remember I said this at one point. I said, comment your favorite color if you have nothing else to comment. And I got a couple comments that were blue, green. And I'd forgotten that I'd said that in the show, Nick. And so I was like, why are people commenting this? No. Comment your favorite color if you got to this and you
It
don't
works.
normally comment. I want to see some colors in the comment channel. Nick, what do you have coming up?
Um, Not a whole lot really, man. We got a lot of good football coming up. I mean, combine's coming up. I want to get through some more prospects. I want to get through some more receivers because I think that second, third tier receiver is very, very good this year too.
Mm-hmm.
And Chicago could end up with a couple from that group, and I'd be okay with it. So I'm working through more prospect film right now.
Same. And over the weekend, I'm hoping that I can publish a couple scouting reports on DBs, baby, in my hunt, in my search for the safety of the future. But I like throwing some alliteration. If there's one thing that I could hope for, you mentioned the combine, right? And hopefully he'll be able to go. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go just because of money, but that's a separate question. If there's one thing that I can hope for, Nick, I want to just echo something Justin Fields said on the on the St. Brown's podcast. I do hope this thing resolves itself, at least relatively soon. If Fields is getting
Yes.
traded, I hope it happens relatively soon because taking this thing up to the draft, call me impatient, but I think that that's not going to help anybody. I don't think that's going to help Andrew Billings. I don't think that's going to help DJ Moore. I don't think
No.
that's going to help anybody, let alone Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. If
Mm.
you do get the chance to make an offer, I think it helps a lot of people, if that's the direction you're going, to just rip the Band-Aid now. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep. No, I'm with you. I mean, him saying that he's sick of it. I mean, that's the players who I think avoid the media. And you think that we're sick of it on Twitter, man? It just gives you an idea of like how many people are talking about this all the time, and it's just ready to be done with it.
He had to unfollow the NFL alongside the
Mhm.
Bears because there's no chance the NFL wasn't posting about this thing on Instagram left, right, and center. Thank you
Mhm.
guys so much for listening. We love putting this podcast on for you. You guys have a great rest of your day or night. And until next time, bear down. And thanks so much for bearing with us.